Move House File 2267 to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee with a re-referral to the Environmental Finance Committee. And I do have an A1 amendment.
All right. Would you like to move your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move the A1 amendment to get the bill in the shape I would like.
All those in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. Representative Hansen, you can go ahead with your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this is a carpet stewardship bill. Members who've been here for several years may remember that this moved through the legislature in 2013 and almost became law, but sputtered at the end of that session. I have some updated data that I think is important to look at when we're talking about the bill. There were 135,000 tons of carpet waste generated in Minnesota per year. 60,000 tons per year are discarded in municipal solid waste. 40,000 tons per year are discarded in C&D landfills. 29,000 tons per year are combusted in waste-to-energy facilities. 6,000 of that 135 tons per year are recycled. Carpet is 2 to 3.5% of the municipal solid waste stream. There's 30 to 40 pounds per capita of carpet generated per year. It's increasing every year. And if you've been looking at the news or following, our waste continues to be generated. We are running out of landfill space, and carpet is one of the largest, a large component. We have a poor role on waste recycling for carpet. So this develops a carpet stewardship program in Section 2, and it has a series of definitions about carpet on page 2 and into page 3. It talks about a carpet stewardship program. So for all carpet sold in the state, producers must individually or through a stewardship program implement and finance a statewide product stewardship program that manages carpet by reducing carpet waste generation, promoting its reuse and recycling, and providing for negotiation and execution of agreements to collect, transport, and process carpet for end-of-life recycling and reuse. Sets by July 1st, 2021, no producer, wholesaler, or retailer may sell carpet or offer carpet for sale in the state unless the carpet producer participates in an approved stewardship plan, either individually or through a stewardship organization. There's a requirement to submit a plan, talks about the content of the plan on page 4, talks about consultation in subdivision 6, agency approval in subdivision 7, the availability of the plan in subdivision 8, talks about producer responsibilities on page 6, retailer responsibilities, stewardship reports, agency responsibilities. Sales information provided to the commissioner under this section are classified as private or non-public data. Local government responsibilities and administrative fee. And then it has a report to the governor at the end. And that is the bill as amended. I know there are several testifiers who would like to provide comment on the bill.
Representative Hansen, did you invite any testifiers who you'd like to go first?
I've had several contact me from both sides, so right. I encourage them to come forward.
All right. I think the first person we had on our list, well, here we've got Commissioner. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Victoria Reinhardt. I'm on the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, and I saw no reason to be shy and just come up and start. In addition to being on the as part of my job on the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners, I currently serve as chair of the Partnership on Waste and Energy, which is Hennepin County, Ramsey, and Washington counties. I also serve as vice chair of the Environment, Energy, and Land Use Committee for the National Association of Counties and is a member of the Environment and Natural Resources Committee for the Association of Minnesota Counties. And I bring all of those up because each of those entities has a platform position in support of product stewardship. One of the obvious reasons for that is for the environmental impacts, and I'll go into those a little bit, but also because oftentimes the cost associated with end-of-life management falls to local governments, and so it's also an economic issue for the counties, especially the counties. So I guess I would like to talk a little bit about the materials benefits of recovery. Minnesota, as I believe you all know, has a recycling goal of 75% by 2030. And if the yield on recovered carpet is at 45 to 60%, which would become the post-consumer products and some of the products, we would not only have carpet recycling, but conserving landfill space, preventing operational problems in waste processing, as you can imagine, going through a refuse-derived fuel facility or something like that, and incineration that result from carpet. It's also an issue of markets, because with China's recent refusal to accept and process American plastic waste, advocates and researchers are urging America's carpet manufacturers to improve the recyclability of their products and take responsibility for the waste they create. And therefore, market development is focusing on domestic manufacturing away from the export markets. We do have one company, well, I'll get into that in a minute, the greenhouse gas benefits. Since carpet is primarily made from petroleum and therefore reuse and recycling would have significant greenhouse gas benefits relative to landfilling or incineration. The WARM model, and please don't ask me what WARM stands for because I don't remember, forecasts that Minnesota would reduce greenhouse gases by 333,763 metric tons of CO2e if all the carpet generated were recycled. That's the equivalent of 71,000 passenger vehicle miles driven, or 58,000 homes electrical consumption, or 365 million pounds of coal. So it gives you an idea of what could happen. Now, do I think that we'll get to 100% of carpet being recycled in Minnesota? No, but the fact of the matter is we have less than 3.5% being recycled today, and we can do so much better than that. Recycling 1 ton of carpet, this is according to the Eunomia report, I think I'm stating that correctly, and was cited in the California greenhouse gas study, said that recycling 1 ton of carpet can prevent up to 2.36 tons of CO2 release compared to landfilling, and can prevent up to 3.46 tons of CO2e compared to incineration. Minnesota has been dealing with manufacturers and the industry for voluntary programs over 20 years, but again, we only are in single digits for recycling, and with only one facility in operation to recover and recycle. There's also another benefit to recycling of carpet, and that is the job benefits. If Minnesota recovered 50% of the discarded carpet, that would be approximately 65,000 tons per year. That would support an estimated 195 direct jobs and up to 650 indirect jobs associated with new product manufacture. We have one carpet recycler right now in Minnesota that has 15 jobs for processing of about the 6,000 tons per year. The California study and also the TELUS Sound Resource Management study cited in California's GHG study estimates that a net of 12 to 14 direct and indirect jobs per 1,000 tons recovered textile waste would be gained relative to disposal. And that seems to be consistent throughout the proprietary information on the industry standards as well. The market development framework and support, manufacturer efforts support additional training and outreach for flooring contractors and professionals. The assessments report supports end market processors and fulfills goals of landfill diversion, post-consumer content and products, and greenhouse gas savings. And I guess going back to the stewardship programming financing included in the bill and the modulated assessments, I guess what I would say there is I have been involved in this area for quite some time. And so I remember the electronics discussion, and I remember actually before that the appliance discussion and going forward. The most recent one that I was very much involved with was the paint product stewardship. And I think the essence of this bill is very similar to that, and that is letting the industry work through that process to make it work for the industry and for Minnesotans, and takes the burden off of local governments through this stewardship organization. I can tell you that when I was working on the paint product stewardship bill, that the industry said that they wanted to do this voluntarily in Minnesota. And I said, go ahead, but if you find that you need legislation to level the playing field, then you need to bring it forward, which is exactly what they did. Because what they found was when you have something that's simply voluntary, you do not have the buy-in from all, and so some are skating by without having to do it and others are not. So because this is an industry-led product stewardship organization that would deal with this just as it did with with paint, it did give a level playing field, and the industry was able to move that forward. So the carpet manufacturers hopefully will be behind this so that we can move it forward, and they have control over its destiny. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for your testimony. If we have any other members of the public wishing to testify, please come up, and any additional people, if you want to take seats kind of back there so we're ready to get moving. We do have a couple more bills this evening, and it's been a long week, so. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Molly Peterson, and I'm testifying on behalf of Fiber Commercial Technologies located in Mankato. Fiber Commercial Technologies uses recycled carpet fiber from landfill-destined post-consumer carpet waste streams to manufacture outdoor building materials. This is a patented process developed by the founders of the FiberCon Composite Decking Company, an industry leader in the outdoor living category of the composite decking industry. The company has invested $30 million in the Mankato plant site and business in the last 30 months. The process they use utilizes carpet fiber from landfill-bound carpet discards compressed to create a plywood-like sheet of material that is further finished into building products. The plant at capacity will consume an estimated 66% of the annual total collectible waste stream of carpet discard in the state of Minnesota. But right now, the company currently sources its fiber from California, where a developed and operating stewardship program provides predictable financial support to recycling effort, creating diversion from the landfill. Thanks to this program, the recycling rate for carpet in California is 15 to 16% and estimated to grow to 24% over the upcoming few years. By contrast, the national carpet recycling rate is currently 2% and is projected to remain stagnant or decline. Although carpet sales in the country are moderately declining due to alternative ceramic and vinyl technologies, the volume of carpet still being sold is massive at 7 billion pounds per year, and the amount predicted to be discarded in the future is many magnitudes larger. This problem needs a solution, and multiple states have begun the effort to create stewardship programs with an economic mechanism to reduce the landfilling of carpet waste. Minnesota, with Fiber Commercial Technologies, has an opportunity to completely alter the current waste stream of carpet entering its landfills. We urge the state of Minnesota to create a sustainable stewardship organization and funding mechanism to permit private company solutions to a very difficult waste stream recycling challenge. We look forward to working with Representative Hansen, members of this committee, the Pollution Control Agency, and stakeholders on this important issue. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for your testimony. The next testifier could come forward. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Hello, Chair and committee members. My name is Kirk Kadelka. I'm Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And I'm going to keep this quite brief. We've already talked about the various benefits, environmental benefits of the conserved resources, the greenhouse gas benefits from recycling carpet, and also the job benefits here in Minnesota as we look to move forward in this area. What I do want to highlight is just a little bit on some history in that. It was mentioned earlier, voluntary efforts and how that's been done. In 1999, Minnesota helped initiate a dialogue that eventually produced the National Carpet Recycling Agreement, MOU, in 2002. And for over about the next decade or so, a number of entities, public and private entities, tried to make a go at a voluntary program. And unfortunately, as a result of those conversations, we were not able to make any changes. And at the end of 2010, that opportunity ended. And that wasn't because of lack of effort. There was a lot of effort by many parties, including the agency, where we have awarded over the last 20 years $1.5 million in grants to help create a recycling program in the state. I was with the agency in 2013 when we worked on this legislation, where it was an agency initiative, and I just want to talk about some of those contrasts. At that point, going back in my notes, the amount of waste that was going in carpet was 86,000 tons. As Representative Hansen has mentioned now, we're at 135,000 tons of carpet, so we're seeing an increase, which is also a reduction in our recycling rate. The same amount is being recycled, so our rate was about 8%, is now moved under 5%. So we're going in the opposite direction. Unfortunately, all the efforts that are moving forward on recycling carpet are in those states where there are product stewardship programs and not in the other states. And so if Minnesota would like to move forward in this area, that is where we see the best effort can be done. With that, Chair and committee members, I'll conclude my remarks, and if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for your testimony. Any additional testifiers? Please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Stowe. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations for the Carpet and Rug Institute. And just like to thank the committee and the chair for letting us testify this evening. The Carpet and Rug Institute represents all of the carpet manufacturers in the United States. About 97% of the soft floor covering that you walk on in the United States is made in the United States. That's a fact we're very proud of. And as you've heard of several people mention, the industry has tried voluntarily and continues to work very diligently, putting a lot of money behind our efforts to recycle carpet, to divert it from the landfill. To that end, we worked with government, NGOs, and the industry and recyclers to form a group called CARE, the Carpet America Recovery Effort. You're going to hear from them shortly with more details about their work. Carpet manufacturers have invested millions of dollars into finding solutions for the challenge of reclamation and recycling carpet, and we continue to look for innovative and partnership solutions. Carpet is a very difficult product to recycle. It is not an A to A product. It's not like a bottle or a can. There are a lot of different components, and Dr. Bob Peoples will share some of the difficulties involved with recycling in his testimony. The industry continues to work with collectors and recyclers throughout the country to increase post-consumer recycling. We began a program in 2015 called the Voluntary Product Stewardship Program. That program provides grants to recyclers and entrepreneurs to help them with their business, to encourage recycling and reuse of the product. And we're trying to further stimulate carpet recycling efforts and increase market demand. You've heard a little bit about market demand. This legislation runs counter to market-driven solutions, which are the hallmark of our country, and it sets up a product stewardship framework that gives broad authority to your state agency, and it dictates, your agency would then dictate to companies how to design their products, and we are concerned with sustainability, and making sustainable choices is a good business choice. So the proposed funding for this program would be solely on the burden of manufacturers, and that burden would be passed down to the retailers, of which there are many in the state of Minnesota, and then along to the consumers. Consumers would see this cost increased on a daily basis as firms would be forced to shift cost onto consumers to account for this burdensome mandate. The fee, according to the bill, is not required to be a transparent fee, and the consumer wouldn't know that they were paying it, effectively becoming a hidden tax. Take-back programs also cost the consumer to collect their take-back products and transport them to a location. Excuse me. As you may be aware, several of the folks that have testified prior to us have mentioned the California bill. The California bill is really still a work in progress. It's very much experimental. The demographics of the state are very different than the demographics of this state. And Bob will talk more about that. The bill here is very similar to the California legislation, and if Minnesota's hope is to promote similar program to California, I would ask that you seriously consider the demographics of the state in Minnesota and the issue of rural collection. The industry has exhibited a strong commitment to this issue and is working diligently to address the many issues facing the collectors, the sorters, and the recyclers. This program will take time to determine the optimal type of programs needed to solve the same challenges which Minnesota will surely face. And we have learned that just because you put money into something does not find solutions that do not exist. We are working to find solutions currently. The carpet industry, as I mentioned, is one of the last manufacturing industries that's left in the United States. Over the past several years, like other industries, it's suffered some declines. Sales are down and workforces have had to be reduced. This type of burden can be seen in California as well. With the increased fees on the front end of carpet, sales have gone down in that state. This burdens an industry that is already voluntarily working together to find solutions. This bill would not benefit the efforts to find meaningful solutions. Instead, it could potentially cost jobs and will absolutely increase the cost to the consumer. House File 2267 would only create more costs and burdens on an industry which is already struggling to survive. I respectfully ask you to reconsider this legislation. The carpet industry just recently became aware of this bill, and we feel that enactment of this legislation would only stymie the progress that we are making, cost jobs in the U.S., and won't lead to the best environmental solutions to the challenges that we currently face.
Thank you for your testimony.
Oh, it worked.
Please introduce yourself for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Robert Peoples. I'm a scientist, so I'm here today to try to share with you facts and information based on the experience we've had in the CARE program over the last decade and a half plus. I am one of the founders of the original CARE organization and was fortunate enough to participate with members from Minnesota in the creation of CARE, with obviously good intentions along the way. What I would like to do today is just touch on some highlights and let you know I'm available to try to answer your questions follow-up, whether they're here or subsequent to this hearing. Just as a reminder, the mission of CARE that was agreed to by the members when we created CARE is to facilitate a carpet industry-led initiative to find market-based solutions for the reuse and the recycle of post-consumer carpet. CARE was signed into existence on January 8th, 2002, and obviously Minnesota was one of the key signatories to that agreement. I wanted to share with you a few thoughts about why it is so hard to recycle carpet. It's built to last, and as a result, it's an extremely durable material, which makes it hard to take apart at the end of its life. When you take apart a multi-component system, the value that's created by those components is determined by their purity. When you have intimate mixtures of these materials, it becomes very difficult to separate the components and therefore penetrate the higher value portions of the market. It's expensive to do that. We compete against virgin materials. Virgin material prices are set by the price of oil. So when oil is down, as we've seen it plummet as low as below $30 a barrel, right now it's back up and fairly stable in the mid-50s. Our virgin raw materials are still relatively low in cost, which makes it very hard for the recyclers to compete for those markets. There's also a certain volume of post-industrial material that comes from the manufacture of original virgin-based goods. Those materials tend to be very clean. They tend to be colorless in many cases, so therefore much easier to use and more desirable. And they sell at a price that's below virgin, which makes price competition, again, difficult. each recycler that we have in the United States, and there's about 24 or so, operates a different process. So there's a great deal of complexity in terms of how do you actually go about collecting, taking a carpet apart, and then use its components to manufacture new products. The products that we have available to us today are fairly limited because of some of the limitations around color and purity of the materials, but I want to share with you that they are growing, and I'll speak to more of that in just a moment. Anytime we collect and try to reuse or recycle a material requires us to have products to put it into, but more importantly, markets to buy those products. The markets that are buying products made from post-consumer carpet today are fairly limited in scope and represent another one of the challenges. And finally, tip fees that people have to pay to send material to the landfills. Low tip fees obviously hurt our ability to get the economics right. Said another way, it's cheaper to send something to the landfill than it is to try to reuse or recycle it. So let me share with you, and if you'll indulge a scientist for a minute, just a little bit about how carpets are put together. This is
Dr. Peoples,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure you realize we have other bills tonight. I'm not sure how long your presentation is, so if we stick to the bill, that would be really helpful.
Okay. I will do my best to do that. I was told I had about 6 to 8 minutes, so I tried to prepare to share that with you.
All right.
Just to give you a feel for the complexity, there are 5 different polymers that make up the different forms of face fiber. So when you look down at a carpet, you're looking at a material. There's multiple types. It's put together with a backing and an adhesive, which is yet different chemical components, and that adhesive is filled with an inert mineral filler, which again, it creates another difficulty. I said this was residential carpet. I won't go through the details of commercial carpet. If you'll note at the bottom of the slide, we know from experience that it costs 3 to 4 times as much to recycle a commercial carpet because of the nature of its construction versus a residential carpet. What's going on around the United States right now? I've already alluded to the difficulty in outlets. We have over half of our recyclers in the last 2 years have shuttered their operations because of the challenges we're facing, in part exacerbated by what happened with National Sword. I think Representative Hansen may have referred to that in his comments. National Sword, basically, the country of China curtailed 95+% of all exports into their country. And even though very little old carpet or used carpet goes to China, all of the material that couldn't go to China had to stay in the U.S. or in Europe, which created a competitive environment for the materials that we were trying to sell in the marketplace. Said another way, it took the economics or the legs out from under the carpet recyclers. So that's been a challenge for us. I'm not going to try to go through each one of these bullets because you can read those, but I do want to point out that over the life of this program, I've done a recent study, and I have an Excel model to try to understand how much has been invested by the carpet industry members and by the entrepreneur community that's trying to practice the technology of recycling. And I was pretty surprised when the number added up excess of $500 million. That, to me, is an example of just how very difficult this challenge is. To spend that much money and know we're still struggling with trying to figure out how to make it work commercially is a testament to how difficult it is. I did want to share with you one example. A major company spent over $25 million in 6 years to start up new technology. This is a multi-billion-dollar international company with deep engineering talent. After 6 years, they shuttered the operation because it did not work. It couldn't work the way they wanted it to. So they're back to the drawing boards. Again, an example of the complexity. To just touch on Highlight, State of California, to give you a feel there, we've been running that program for about 8 years. We've spent more than $45 million in subsidies paid out to the recyclers. We've given out more than $5 million of grants, and we're still trying to figure out how to get the recycling rates up in the state. If you look at the recycling rates, they are higher than they are in the rest of the country, but they're relatively stable. They're not climbing at this point in time. If you add up those expenses plus all the expenses to run the program, we've spent over $65 million over the last 5 years, which equates to 31 cents per pound for every pound of material that's being recycled. Not inexpensive. I'll let you read the rest of the details on that. I will mention that the California assessment rate when we started this program was a nickel a square yard, and everybody thought that would be enough. to fund this program and be successful. That number has gone up 700% since we started, and today it's at 35%. Since Minnesota is a state that has to deal with urban and rural areas, I will share with your experience in California has told us that it's a minimum of 3 times more expensive to collect and transport carpet from rural areas than from urban areas. You've heard some comments on the impact of sales. These are the sales in the state of California since 2013. You can see not only a decline, but an escalating rate of decline in sales, and you can see the assessments that have been charged over time, and the impact that trying to put in place a assessment like this has on sales going forward. Bottom line, CARE as an organization has a lot of experience. I'm trying to share that with you in a very short time frame here. The largest recycler that we have in the U.S. has seen his volumes decline by 2/3 in the last couple of years because of the macroeconomic factors they're facing in the marketplace. To do this, we know it would require very large subsidies. It will impact carpet sales and it will cost carpet jobs. But I'm here to tell you there is some good news. Market-based forces are starting to respond to the investments and the patience we've had. I just came from a 3-day meeting in Washington, D.C., which is a major major plastics recycling event, and for the first time, I had conversations with a number of major global international corporations seeking input on how they can secure the flow of post-consumer carpet materials to meet their demand for recycled content. It's being driven by global interest around sustainability to tackle these problems. The brand owners, so people that make Coke and Pepsi and Evian water and such, are now facing those consumer pressures that are starting to ask for post-consumer content in their products. There have been major investments made by a number of companies. I have them listed up here. You heard from Fiberon's representative just a few minutes ago. These folks have invested tens of millions of dollars now and are preparing to consume post-consumer carpet. This is...
Dr. Peoples,
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
well over 9 minutes now, and if you want to send the PowerPoint to our staff, we can send that out to the committee. But we,
Yes,
when you
ma'am.
get to your final words, that would be helpful.
Well, my final words are that I believe we're on the cusp of the carpet recycling industry transforming from a nascent organization trying to figure it out to the beginnings of the global chemical enterprise seeking our materials and willing to make investments to do that. So I believe we're on the right track. When we started, we have a blank sheet of paper. Less than 20 years to get where we are, I think, is pretty good progress, given the fact we also went through a major recession in the middle of all of this. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I beg your patience with me. Being a scientist, sometimes it's not easy to be concise.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any other members of the audience who would wish to testify on this bill? Member discussion. Representative Fabian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, man, I don't even know where to start. This is, Representative Hansen, to the bill. Why do you delete Section 1? Why are you taking away the possibility of trade secrets and so forth? I mean, this is, as I understand and look at this bill and the paint stewardship stuff, these are basically almost identical. Why are you taking out that protection in Section 1?
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if you look later in the bill, the protection is there for, let me find the exact.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Eliff.
Oh, Mr. Eliff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe Representative Hansen is looking for lines 7.12 to 14, sales information provided for the commissioner. It's classified as private data.
There we go. Representative Fabian.
Madam Chair, so, Mr. Eliff, does that one sentence do the same as what was done in the section 1 that was deleted?
Mr. Eliff.
Madam Chair, Representative Fabian, what lines 712 to 14 say talks about sales information provided to the Commissioner of PCA. I'm looking at lines 110 and 111, which talk about data received by a county or district from a transfer station, which wouldn't be covered by those lines on page 7. Same thing with lines 112 to 114, records of solid waste facilities received by a county. So those wouldn't be covered under the language on page 7.
Would not be covered, excuse me.
Representative Fabian.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Would not be covered, correct?
Yes, and
Mr.
same thing
Ela.
with lines 115 and 116, provided to counties or cities.
Okay.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why is the fee, what are the fees going to be per yard? And we hear that it's going to be, it's 35% more expensive than what the testifier had said something about that.
Madam Chair and Representative Fabian, if you look on line 7.29, 7.30, the agency must set a fee at amount that when paid by every stewardship organization or individual producer that submits a stewardship plan is adequate to cover the agency's full cost of administering and enforcing this section. The agency may establish a variable fee based on relevant factors, including but not limited to the portion of carpet sold in the state by the members of the organization compared to the total amount of carpet sold in the state by all organizations submitting a stewardship plan.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So then they get to do this, they get to set the fee, and they don't have to come back to the legislature for any kind of approval?
Representative Hansen.
Madam Chair and Representative Fabian, we are providing that authority to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Thank you.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did I hear you say there's just one recycling facility in Minnesota, or are there two?
Representative Hansen.
Madam Chair, I think you're referring to the testifiers. There was one testifier who spoke for the facility in Mankato, and then I'm not aware of any others besides that.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, from Hallock, Governor Walz talks frequently about Kitson County and Hallock. It's 430 miles, probably. The cost to transport this stuff is going to be incredible. So, what happens at the Mankato recycling plant after the usable material is taken out? What happens to what's left, the waste?
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Representative Fabian. I learned of that exact facility yesterday with the company. I knew that that recycler was there, but the details of their process, I am unaware of the details of their process.
Representative
Thank you,
Fabian.
Madam Chair. Well, I heard the Commissioner from Ramsey County, I believe, talking about the impact on landfills and carpeting. Now, if you're going to bring in carpet from all over northern Minnesota, all parts of Minnesota, thousands of tons a year, and you're going to remove a portion, and I think I heard, did I hear 30% of the volume of the carpet is recyclable? Was that the number I heard? Anyway, you're going to be bringing it to Mankato, thousands of tons, and now it's going to be disposed of where? The waste? In the Mankato landfill?
Representative Hansen.
Madam Chair and Representative Fabian, today in Minnesota we have 135,000 tons of carpet that are going to landfills. I remember when Buck Hill was the tallest thing in Dakota County. There's going to be a landfill that's going to be a small mountain in Dakota County. So wherever you are, landfill capacity is filling up. And so by requiring this product stewardship, it encourages the market development, encourages the recycling. It provides that consistency of market that right now the property taxpayers are having a hidden price of paying for this cleanup and storage and disposal. So what has worked with previous experiences in our state has been it develops those markets for recycling. And so I would hope that you would have places that the businesses would flourish trying to deal with this volume of recyclable material.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think that's an admirable goal, but I don't see that happening in, say, Thief River Falls or Aurora or wherever. I just don't. I don't see that we have the volume there. You know, I made the comment a few years ago when we take the carpet, which we're going to do, we're going to take the carpet out of the house, and we have about 3 things that we do with it, right? Representative Purcell, we either put it in a deer stand, a fish house, or something else. But I just see this as a real burden on rural carpet people, sales, installers. So to the recycling people, you said something about it, the cleanliness of the carpet. Can the carpet be wet when it's brought to the recycling center? Can it be stored outside? How often is a truck going to come to Hallock or Roseau or Hibbing to pick up this?
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Fabian, I don't have all the information on the processes of how this goes forward. I have been to the facility in Mankato. I have been to other facilities across the country, actually, with many different types of products, including carpet. And I guess one question that you had earlier that I can respond to is that the yield on recovered carpet is between 45 and 60%. I do know that when the products come in, they are not clean because they've been used, they've been ripped up. There's a lot of things, and it isn't easy to disassemble that, as was pointed out. And by the way, I could be wrong here, but he's still here. I think the assessment fee was not 35%, but 35 cents. It went from 7 cents to 35 cents, and so I wanted to dispel that right away. But so when the materials come in, there is, in California, I know that their process is very extensive as far as how they break it down and how some of that product is coming from California to the plant in Mankato. The idea behind this, just as it has been with other product stewardship products, is that you develop those markets, and when you have enough supply, you will have other markets develop, hopefully within the state of Minnesota. We've been working on this for a long time and really trying to make that happen on all kinds of products. And so, is it clean when it comes in? Absolutely not. Can it be wet? Can it be soiled? It absolutely is. There's no doubt about that. But there are processes in place to recycle them, and when you're getting such a small amount, it's very difficult to develop markets. And I think you asked a lot of other questions that I can try to answer, but I hope I answered the ones that you asked.
Representative Fabian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of our previous testifiers is coming down. Did you have a comment on my questions? I'm just curious, like in Hallock, Minnesota or someplace, is the carpet going to have to be stored inside? So that it doesn't get all soaking wet, sitting outside in the snow and the rain and all that?
Yes, Representative.
Dr. Peoples, and if you just stick to answering the question.
I'll do my best. Yes, you have to keep the carpet dry. We cannot recycle post-consumer carpet that's wet.
Representative Fabian.
So then does that mean that all of our carpet suppliers in rural Minnesota are going to have to build a warehouse to store old carpet in that they've pulled out of a home or something? Folks, listen, I appreciate what we're trying to do here, but I think that we're creating a burden for small-town Minnesota that's going to be... I was at the Ace Hardware store in Hallock last summer, and the owner of the store was upset because he's losing paint sales to Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I'm afraid that we're going to have the same thing happening with carpet in our small towns, in our border cities, in Moorhead and East Grand Forks and places like that. I hope that the private market is going to find a solution, and I think I heard some of that in the scientists, and I apologize, I forgot your name. I'm just really struggling with this as I was a few years ago, so I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Fabian. And I did forget one part of your question, and you just touched on that again, as far as what happens in Greater Minnesota. And you're correct that it is more difficult in Greater Minnesota. The recycling goal, of course, of 75% is just for the metropolitan area, so it's not as high in Greater Minnesota. But just as with paint and with electronics, we were able to deal with that through the market, through the processes that were in place to do that. Now, I think it's important to note that the cost of paint, and that's one that I can speak to as well, and I do view this as very similarly, is the cost that is now being covered by the Paint Product Stewardship Organization used to be covered by counties. We spent millions of dollars a year on waste paint and recycling of paint and disposal of paint. And so that cost was there. It is now, it is true, it is being paid by the people that are buying the product. But the taxpayers paid that cost, and that became quite a burden. And again, that goes kind of full circle to where I started, was the reason that the National Association of Counties, the Association of Minnesota Counties, and the local organizations with the counties especially, is it's also economics, given all the other mandates that we have, that there is a cost. It's who's going to pay for it. And it seems the best way to do that, not only again to deal with the environmental issues, the greenhouse gases and all of that stuff, but it's by the people that are using the products.
Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the testifiers here, is your name Mr. Bowe?
Peoples.
People? Okay. The only thing I have to ask you, excuse me, Madam Chair, is can I get your PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm happy to provide that.
And then
Representative Green.
Madam Chair, there was a testifier that was in the recycling business. Is she still here?
Yes.
Madam Chair, while she comes down, may I just give you a piece of information? There is a second recycler here in Minnesota, Brotex Corporation, that's been in business for quite some time. They do carpet and rags and other recycled materials.
Ms. Peterson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Peterson, you had said that you're importing your stuff from California now. Is there a cost to you? How much are you paying for that?
Ms. Peterson.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Green. First of all, I'm a lobbyist, so I'm not actually the recycler myself. I will get that information from you, from the company CEO, on what the costs are to import it from California.
Representative Green.
So, Madam Chair, well, thank you for that. That would be pretty important, because what I've been hearing here is that it's many times more expensive to recycle than it is to make carpet. And so what that's telling me is that you're not going to come to a point where it's really feasible. So my next question is, does your facility that you lobby for, do they have the market to expand to take in all the carpet that we're talking about in Minnesota?
Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Green. My inclination is yes, they do, but I'd like to confirm that with him.
Representative Green.
Well, Madam Chair, thank you for that. I would love to know that. And the other, because it's late, and I'm just going to go with a comment here, it seems to me from our testifiers that from the private sector have stuck well over $500 million into trying to make this work. And they haven't had a whole lot of success, but they tell me that they're on the verge of doing it. Well, if they haven't had a lot of success yet up to this point, and right now we don't have the facilities to take this stuff in and to make it work, what we're doing is we're going to be charging a fee for taking carpet that we really don't have any place for it to go right now. And if the industry is on the cusp of having the solutions here, I think it might be better just to wait and see if they got that solution coming before we're just going to impose fines and maybe run people out of state, and I can guarantee you that's going to happen, and hurt our own small-town businesses once again for something that the state really doesn't have the ability to manage right now. So I would recommend that we hold off on this until there's at least something feasible to go to, instead of just saying, well, we want to do something even if it's wrong. Thank you.
Any additional discussion, members? All right. Representative Luick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one of the questions that comes up, I keep hearing this fall back to how the paint recycling works, and I guess, and I don't know if we got the answers to this, but my question is, and I'm in the process right now of painting the inside of my garage, and of course I come from a generation that's maybe a little cheap, but you know, you want to know how many square foot, you know, it's easy to figure out. So, oh, you need this many gallons of paint, and you didn't get a break for buying a whole bunch. So the way I do the paint, and I think most folks do unless you're extravagantly rich, is you don't buy any more than you need. So recognizing there's always a little residue in those cans, and once in a while I guess you might make a mistake and buy something you don't need. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the idea, how much paint do we consume in the state of Minnesota, and then how much do we literally recycle? How much of it's stuck on the wall that we don't recycle in the manner where we're bringing a can of paint back? I just don't see the symmetry here and how you can compare the two, because 100% of the carpet comes out when you put new carpet in.
Representative Hansen?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Luick. Sounds like an informational hearing after deadline to have the PCA come in and talk about paint and progress of the paint stewardship program.
Representative Luick?
Oh, I'm asking the question about same question. I mean, we've got some big numbers here on the issue with how much comes out, and then how much we can legitimately recycle, and how much we still have to put in landfills. But I guess the other thing, and maybe MPCA can clarify this, it looks to me like we're going to have this baby up and running and humming and working in 28 months or something. Looking at the deadlines here, but of course that assumes that we're in the law today. You can shave a few more, but I really want to know if MPCA really thinks that the industry, and I mean, it looks like California's been struggling with this for way more than a decade. So can we really legitimately expect to shut off the sales throughout Minnesota, except for those that have a stewardship program, and get that done without a lot of humps and bumps?
Mr. Kudelka?
Chair and committee members, for the record, my name is Kirk Kudelka, Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. The program is meant to be flexible. It's built in there so that it isn't wrapped up overnight. The expectation is not 100% recycled right away, but there's a build-up, and that's why there's that opportunity to slowly move up as we go along. The question is, how is that progressing, and making sure there are steps being made to move forward to increase the recycling capacity in the state versus today where we have recycling going the opposite way.
Representative Luick?
I guess I just, bouncing along here, seeing all these dates on or after, no producer, et cetera, so obviously California's still ramping up, and they kind of apparently hit a flat spot. I guess I don't want to belabor the point, but I guess, Madam Chair, I'd ask for a roll call on this item.
All right, any additional discussion? Any words before we take the roll call vote? Representative Hansen?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. 135,000 tons per year of carpet waste is generated in Minnesota. 6,000 is currently recycled per year. I'd ask for your support.
The clerk will take the roll.
Purcell?
Aye.
Becker-Finn?
Yes.
Lewick,
No.
Acom,
Yes.
Anderson, Bo, Claflin,
Yes.
Fabian,
No.
Gomez, Green,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Heinzman, Lippert,
Yes.
Listlegard, Wagenius,
Yes.
And the motion passes on a vote of 8 yeses and 3 nos.